Hey guys, welcome back to Movie Talk. So I just finished watching The Last of Us Episode 2, and even though I enjoyed a lot of it, there are a few things that I didn't like, and that's mostly because they deviated from the game. And if you played the game, then you know that there's a big thing that's supposed to happen early on in the game, which happens to one of the characters. So, yeah, I kind of felt like we should have had more time with this character. I felt like we should have had at least another episode with this character before something happens. So, yeah, that's why I felt a bit bummed. And this episode is about an hour long. And the opening, which has nothing to do with Joel, Ellie, and Tess, um, the opening is about 10 minutes. So now you have about 50 minutes, but actually minus about 5 minutes because of the credits. So yeah, you have a shorter time compared to even the first episode. So yeah, I know that Sarah does die like after 30 minutes. So she does have a short length, but a lot of that focuses on her. And this episode, even though this character is in it a lot, but again, I felt like we should have more with this character. There is an awesome sequence in this episode that actually made the whole episode worth it. I thought it was incredibly well done. So yeah, this sequence was really, really, really good. The opening scene is great, and yeah, on a technical aspect, everything about this show is so far good. The visuals are great. The makeup effects, oh my god, when you see the makeup effects on more of these infected, yeah, they knocked it out of the park. If it turns out that it's all practical, I believe it because yeah, it's really, really well done, and good job to those stunt actors too. So yeah, these actors and the actresses did a great job. The music is still great, and yeah, you they have some of the famous dialogue from the game, and it's actually there. So I have to do the Leonardo DiCaprio thing and go, "Hey, hey, hey! I got it! I see it!" So yeah, so this episode was fun, but again, there were a few things I didn't like because it did deviate from the game to me a little too much. So I do have to go into spoilers. Okay, so spoilers. So the opening is different because it focuses on Jakarta. I believe it was a couple days before the infection hits the US, hits Texas. So it focuses on this professor of midicology, and she was sent to investigate on the cordyceps. So she checked up one of the people who died, and it turns out that the tendrils were coming out of her mouth and everything. So yeah, that's why I was a bit disappointed about the before I watched the show and I heard of what they're doing with the spores. The spores are not in the show like at all. So they don't have to wear the masks anymore. So that it is the spores are replaced by the tendrils. So at first I was a bit worried like the spores were like a big thing in the game, and I understand that you don't want to have the actors and actresses wear the masks and stuff, and you know it might distort the dialogue and everything, but yeah, I was like, it's still from the game. You got to have it in, but the tendrils are still a good replacement. So this opening was really intense, and even though there's no action or anything, just investigation, it's still intense, and it's honestly really good. And it's parallels to the opening of the first episode. So I thought that was really well done. And then it cuts to present time with Joel, Ellie, and Tess. And they changed it a bit this time too, because when we first left off, it was nighttime, it was raining, and the trio are heading towards the skyscraper. And if you played the game, then you know, okay, now these guys have to go through the skyscraper, go from the top floor, go to the bottom floor, and everything. And then they have to encounter the infected, the stalkers, and also the clickers, and that's where Joel has to use shivs and everything. So that's what I thought was gonna happen, but no. In this one, so it's morning. It's no longer raining. So Ellie slept the entire time. So Joel and Tess were looking out at her because they don't trust her and they believe that she will become infected and try to kill them. So Joel has his gun ready the entire time, and Tess is beginning to think that maybe Ellie being immune is actually real. So I like. I like that part because in the game, Tess doesn't believe Ellie at first, and Joel doesn't believe Ellie at first either. They were thinking about just killing her and stuff like that too. So, but the fact that they spent the night together and they see Ellie and they see that she's not getting worse, that they actually see that they have evidence that she got bitten, she is infected, but she isn't becoming a stalker or killer or clicker or a runner. So that's why Tess believes maybe this is real. And maybe that's why she really wants to bring Ellie to the Fireflies. So they actually showed that here compared to in the game where Tessa is slowly believing that Ellie might be immune. So I like that. I do like that. But that means that the whole skyscraper encounters did not happen in this show. So they see the skyscrapers. They were talking about, okay, should we go straight through or take the long way? They decide to take the long way. So they're like, okay, yeah, we don't have to deal with the skyscrapers now. So I was bummed about that. And I know some people on Twitter are gonna joke about that by saying, "Oh yeah, the show is good, but it's not like the game where Joel dies like hundreds of times because of the first clicker encounter, or he dies so much because he didn't make enough shivs." Oh man, yeah, Joel doesn't make a shiv in this one, so I was a little bummed about that. So they bypass the skyscrapers and they I don't know if it's the exact same hotel because I got double check in the game, but I believe this is the hotel with the piano in Philadelphia. That's I or Pittsburgh. No, it's supposed to be Pittsburgh, right? I believe in the game. So yeah, that's why I was a bit confused because I was like, wait, they don't go into this hotel yet, right? The hotel wasn't Tess wasn't there for the hotel. It was just Joel and Ellie after they were attacked by the Raiders, and then they have to go into the hotel with the piano and everything. That's what I thought was gonna happen, you know? So that's why I was a little confused. I have to play the game to figure out the location again. So that part was a little weird. But yeah, there was a Ellie was Bella Ramsey was still great as Ellie, and yeah, there were a couple of funny parts where she pretended that she was entering the hotel and she meets the doorman or something like that. That was good. And I also like the back and forth between Joel and Ellie, and Ellie is getting on Joel's nerves very easily, and Joel is pissed off at Ellie. So I like the back and forth between them. So, yeah, they bypass the hotel and then they realize that if they keep going the long way, they have to pass through an army of the infected, which are on the ground. So it did remind me a lot of Days Gone and World War Z. So, yeah, that was some creepy imagery right there. So they decide to cut through the museum. So yeah, the museum sequence, I loved it. I really loved it. And the tendrils, man. Okay, so the tendrils. If the tendrils are still fresh, if you step on it or touch it, it sends a signal to all the nearby infected, which will run towards your position. And these tendrils are everywhere. Everywhere. They're all over the ceiling, all over the walls, all over the floor. So if you touch one, then you're in trouble and you have to escape or attack or whatever. So I I actually like this. And yes, I even though I still miss the spores from the game, but this one is honestly a bit more terrifying because it's very limiting. Like you have to not step on these tendrils, and because in the game, it's mostly you should not make any noise. That's all you have to do. You just have to be stealthy, not make any noise, don't step on a broken glass, or use your gun or anything, or make loud noises. So that's like the biggest limiting thing. But you could still, if you're stealthy, you could still bypass everything. But here, if you have to go from point A to point B and there are tendrils everywhere, then you have no choice but to step over the parts that don't have the tendrils, or hope that the tendrils are so old and dry that you can step on those. So it's not just sound that sound that attracts the infected, it's the tendrils. So that made it more intense for me. So the whole museum sequence, like things are breaking apart, so they fall down. So which attract the clickers. And oh my god, the makeup artist did a fantastic job on the clickers, man. Oh man, so the clickers look amazing, and the actors portraying them are really really good too, and the sound effects, oh my god, it's so good. And when shit goes wrong, and then Tess was trying to shoot at one, but she keeps missing because the clicker was moving erratically. Just like in the game, I love it. I really love it. Like, oh my God, Tess, you're missing. Oh no, you're losing ammo too. Oh my God. So you're just on the edge of your seat because it's just like the game. And Joel also, like Joel was missing too, and he hit some parts, but it didn't affect the clicker much. So he loses the gun, and he has to quietly reload his, and also the flashlights. In the game, it's convenient because it's on your backpack, so you don't have to, hold it or anything. But here, the characters have to hold the flashlight, so Joel couldn't see anything, so he put the flashlight next to his neck, so he has to hold it like that while reloading his gun, but he has to reload it quietly because the casings can make some noise too. Oh my god, it was intense, man. I loved it. I love this sequence. And then after that, then they go into the building where Tess has to die. Even though this scene was almost shot by shot, line by line from the game, where it deviates is that the soldiers didn't come after Joel, Ellie, and Tess. It turns out that Joel killed one of the infected inside the building, and that attracted the tendril, which sends a signal to all the infected, the army of the infected that they passed by. So that whole army is trying to come to them, and Tess decides to sacrifice herself. So she knocks over some gas cans and also threw some grenades down. Which honestly, I felt like Joel should have kept a couple of those. So yeah, I understand that it was very urgent, like they had no time left, but I honestly felt like Joel should have scavenged a little bit. Like, hold on, let me press the triangle button. Let me try to scavenge everything. See if there's actual ammo and guns and shit, and take a few of the grenades. So that in the game, that's what I would have done. But yeah, so Tess decides to sacrifice herself, and uh, this part was weird to me. So the infected busts through, and Tess is trying to flick the lighter so she could blow up the building, but it doesn't work. So one of the infected don't just go after her, like attack her or anything, try to tear her apart or anything like that. No. So the one of the infected just slowly goes up to her and starts kissing her because the tendrils were coming out of the mouth, so the tendrils were gonna go into her mouth. Maybe they're gonna explain more about this in the other episodes, so maybe if the infected knew that one of the other people are infected, but not as much. So all they do is just infect them more instead of biting them or tearing them up or something like that. I don't know. Hopefully they explain more about this, like show more about this. But here it's just weird. Like this infected person just comes up and just kisses her, not like tears her flesh off or something like that. So that's why that's one part I didn't like. And honestly, I kind of would. So Tess blows herself up, and that's where the episode ends. And we see that episode 3 is going to be about Bill and Frank. So that's the thing here. In the game, Joel doesn't know who Frank is. He didn't even know that Bill had a partner until they meet up again. So, the fact that Tess knows who Bill and Frank is, which means that Joel should know who Bill and Frank is. So at this point, I believe Frank should be still alive. And from the look ahead thing for next week's episode, it seems like Frank is still alive at this point. Like he's not infected at all or dead or anything. So yeah, that's gonna be an interesting thing. But yeah, about Tess. I felt like we should have had one more episode with her, which is why I thought maybe episode 2 could have been about the whole skyscraper encounter. Like they have to be stealthy. They were talking more. Tess and Ellie bond a little more. So that's what I kind of hope for. And yeah, Tess and Ellie kind of bonded. They talked a bit more during this. And yeah, like I said, even though I do like the fact that Tess believes more that Ellie could be the real thing. Um, but yeah, I felt like we should have had more with Tess because we didn't have much of her in episode 1, and then even though we did have more of her in episode 2, but again, it felt like we skipped some parts. I felt like we do need one more episode before Tess dies. So that's why it was a bit of a bummer for me, which kind of hurts because I do love the opening 10 minutes to this. But if we cut that 10 minutes and focus more on Tess, I think that probably would have been better. Or just add 10 more minutes. Make this a 1 hour, 10-minute episode instead of 1 hour. I don't know. That's why I kept thinking we should have had more with Tess because it felt a little hollow. It felt a little empty for me, even though I thought Anna Torv did a good job. And honestly, this is the first time I realized that she actually has gray hairs in this. So that's the thing. Tess, I don't recall Tess having gray hairs in the game. Like that she's Joel's age, that she is like 40s, late 40s or something like that. But still, it's more noticeable this time around. And I have no problem with that. I just thought that was pretty cool. Um, so yeah, I do want more with Tess. I do want more with Tess. And the Tendrils thing I thought was cool. The museum sequence was a lot of fun. The opening was pretty good. And Bella Ramsey is still great as Ellie, and Pedro Pascal is still great as Joel. Oh yeah, they showed off that Joel broke his hand when beating up the soldier in episode 1, which again I thought that was pretty good. Like he because he's hurt, he couldn't use his hand as efficiently. So I do felt like that does feel more human for this TV show because even though the characters are really realistic in the game, still in the game you have the med pack and then everything's fine. You just bandage yourself up with the med pack. Oh yeah, you're good. Your hand doesn't hurt anymore, so you should be fine. So that's how I feel about episode 2. Episode 3, I hear from critics that it's really excellent. Like it might be the best episode of the season. So I'm really looking forward to that. And this one is going to be interesting because from what I can see from that look ahead thing, that Frank is still alive. Because there's a shot where Joel was talking to Bill and Ellie is with another person. And I assume that person is Frank. So we'll see about that. All right. Well, that's how I feel about episode 2. If you watched it, write down in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Let me know. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Later.